I'm Nintendo.
And I'm Sega. This is Console War!
And the terrible service are all reasons I will never eat at your establishment again.
Nice. That'll show them. I mean, what a terrible dining experience. There was barely any alcohol in my screwdrivers.
Seriously, and they wasted all the nurses' outfits on dudes.
Worst hospital ever. Hold on. Wonder who this is. Hello? Oh. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Sure. It will be done. Bye. Okay, so that was the head of the neighborhood watch. Apparently, crime's on a rise, and he needs us to come up with a solution.
A solution? Huh. How's about a network that alerts the whole neighborhood whenever there's a crime being committed? An app of some sort.
What? That's as boring as it is practical. If you want to stop crime, you need to do something bold and over the top.
We can cut off our hands and replace them with knives.
No. But I do like the thinking outside the box. What I had in mind was jetpacks.
Jetpacks?
Jetpacks.
And how would a jetpack help us stop crime?
I don't know, haven't you seen a little movie called The Rocketeer?
No.
Really? You should watch it. It's a pretty good movie. Anyways, what about, Sparkster?
Sparkster the video game? Now we're talking. Hey, would we have swords?
It's kind of a ridiculous question. Of course we'd have swords.
Well, if it's gonna be like Sparkster, then I'm in. It's such a good game for the Super Nintendo.
Right, but it's definitely better on Sega Genesis.
No, it's better for the Super Nintendo.
That's it. Are we doing this?
Yep.
All it needs is my beer and my game.
Something wrong?
I don't know. Just feel like I'm forgetting something.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy! Console Wars are gonna call me for another cameo! Me, Blazebler, for my favorite games of all time, Sparkster! I can't wait! Well, it's probably them right now! Hello, how's it? Hi, Mom. Oh, no, I can't talk right now. I'm waiting for an important... I'm telling you, I cannot talk! Okay, I'm sorry, I love you. I'm sorry. No, I'm not gonna wear a sweater during the summer!
It's probably nothing. Best Sparkster.
Rocket Knight Adventures is a side-scrolling action platformer. It was developed and published by Konami for the Sega Genesis in 1993. The game was very well received. The games we're looking at today are the follow-ups.
Sparkster on Super Nintendo is a spin-off, while Sparkster on Sega Genesis is a sequel. The full name of the Genesis game is actually Sparkster Rocket Knight Adventures 2. Even though they share the same name, box art, and are both developed by Konami, they are quite different from one another. So, which game's better, Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis? Let's find out.
These games look identical at first.
Both games obviously have you playing as Sparkster, and he looks the same in both games. Some levels even look similar. Some, but not many.
They look a little similar, but the Super Nintendo game obviously looks better.
Every level in this game is beautiful, incredibly rich in detail, and so diverse from one another. It really makes you wonder what you'll see next. The enemies look fantastic too, whether it's a small goon or a large robot. There's just so much detail. But it's the bosses that really stand out here. They're all larger than life. They're also incredibly detailed and diverse. And the character animation is smooth. Definitely some of the most fluid animations in 16 bits.
Yeah, it looks nice, but the Sega game is no slouch.
I also have incredible looking levels. They're loaded with detail and definitely distinct from one another. My enemies look fantastic too. They come in all shapes and sizes. My bosses also stand out. These guys are large and in charge. So much detail here. My character animation is also incredibly smooth. Definitely smoother than your game. And there's some sweet effects going on here.
You like cool effects? Then definitely check out my game.
There's lots of really cool effects in the Super Nintendo game. Check out these rocks transforming into enemies. That's ridiculously smooth. Nothing like that on Sega. And this sweet barrel roll action. Definitely nothing like that on Sega. And the sheer speed of movement in this level. And look at all these missiles! That's some 3D awesomeness to put some 32-bit games to shame. And how's about some more 3D action over here? You don't have that in a Sega game.
Now I'm the one with balls flying in my face.
Huh, it does kind of sound weird when you say it out loud.
That's what I've been saying.
Both games look good, but with cooler effects, impressive feats, a buttload of 3D, and pretty much pushing 16 bits to the limit. Best graphics goes to Super Nintendo.
There's some similarities with our presentations too.
Both games have intro movies. Both games have multiple endings and similar looking credits. Both games have a score tally at the end of every level. And there's the occasional in-game cutscene in both games.
But there are definitely differences in the presentation. Let's start with the HUDs.
Both games have the health, number of lives, rocket charge, and number of gems.
The Sega game has a slot machine in the HUD.
Right, that's because slot machines are exclusive to your game. But you know what isn't? The score. And your game is missing the score. Like you said, you have a score at the end of every level. So where's your score?
Where's your score? I don't see it on the HUD, so maybe I'm looking in the wrong place.
Oh, I don't think we're gonna do this again.
Maybe it's here, in the couch, underneath the cushion.
You're not gonna find it in the couch.
Oh, really? Because I just did.
That doesn't count.
So we had the score on the couch, but not in your game?
Well, it doesn't matter anyway, because the score's pretty much pointless in both games.
It doesn't give you extra lives or continues. And there's no scoreboard to enter your name either. It's completely pointless. Still not convinced and need to see the score? Okay, Super Nintendo is missing one score. When you beat the Super Nintendo game, they don't give you the final score tally. How many points did you get? Guess you'll never know. You get the final tally in Sega.
Well, the score isn't that important anyway.
That's what I've been saying.
Really? First time I'm hearing it.
Well, your game is missing something else.
When you start a stage in the Sega Genesis game, you get a nice title card. Now I know what stage I'm on. Thanks, Sega. On Super Nintendo, you get nothing. No title card. No idea what stage you're on. You have to keep track of it in your head. What is this, the Middle Ages? Plus, I have this sweet title card too. You don't have that on Super Nintendo.
So, it has some title card.
So, it means my game just put a little more effort into it than yours.
Even though both games have almost identical presentation, with the addition of title cards, my game has the edge. Best presentation goes to Sega Genesis.
Oh, here we go. Something our games have in common. The music.
The music in both games had the same composers, Michiru Yamane, who previously worked on Castlevania Bloodlines, and Akira Yamaoka, who previously worked on Contra Hardcore.
The Super Nintendo game also had help with the sound design from Katsuhiko Uruhara, Masahiro Ikariku, and Manako Mitsuhira.
The same composers means a lot of the same songs.
Yep. But they definitely sound better on Sega.
What?
Oh, just take a listen.
Music on Super Nintendo sounds weak compared to Sega. Genesis definitely has better drums. Sega's more action-packed. Just listen to that bass line. Overall, the Sega melody sounds cleaner, while the Super Nintendo sounds muffled.
My music has better drums, bass lines, and clearer melodies.
But I have way more instruments in my game. It makes certain songs sound more dramatic.
But mine sounds better. This is an action game. Definitely want those songs to have a certain kick.
Well, I still like the way my game sounds.
I even think my originals sound better.
Here's the pyramid level on Sega. It's a little more forgettable on Super Nintendo. Here's the password score on Sega. And here's Super Nintendo.
Music's whatever, but let's move on and talk about sound effects.
Sound effects in both games are fine. What do you have to add?
I just want to say that your sound has a lot of heart.
Really? Wow, I don't know what to say. You're usually mean when it comes to sound on Sega.
I'm sorry, did I say heart? I meant fart. Your game has a lot of fart. I mix those two words up sometimes, ever since I had that fart attack.
Listen to all the fart sound effects on Sega. Tell me these don't sound like farts.
I think you're really reaching here. I mean, that last one barely sounds like a fart.
Oh, really?
Okay, let's talk about your sound effects. Or should I say, lack of sound effects.
Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself, but the Super Nintendo has a laser sword and Sega doesn't. Even though you have a laser sword, you can't tell by listening. No laser sound. They have it in Zelda. Here, doesn't this sound better?
Sound effects aside, my music is much better.
Having songs with better drums, bass lines, and clearer melodies, best sound goes to Sega Genesis.
Gameplay in both games seems identical at first.
Both games have you play as Sparkster, the Rocket Knight. Both games have one button to attack with your sword, one button to jump, and one button to use a rocket. The rocket works a couple of ways. If you hold the D-pad, the rocket lets you fly for a few seconds. You can be launched in 8 different directions in both games. If you just hit the rocket button with no D-pad, then you do a spin attack. Both games let you climb certain platforms upside down. Both games have gems you can collect. Both games have you fight a rival, Axel, once using rockets and once in giant mechs, albeit in different perspectives.
And both games can be very difficult.
Both games have their fair share of difficult enemies, bosses, and levels. You're gonna die a lot in these games, so good thing there's a password system.
One frustration with the games is the actual difficulty setting and how these games force you to play on hard. Let me explain. You can beat both games on normal, but you won't see the true ending. You'll just get the credits. In order to see the true ending in both games, you have to play on hard. And for games that are already this difficult, this is a pain. An annoying flaw in both of these games.
Both difficult games with lots of similarities.
They seem identical until you go deeper. I've got some good variety.
In addition to the typical action platform levels, I also have this robotic bird level with super fast action. Don't have that on Sega. I also have this cool flying shooter level. It reminds me of Legendary Wings. It's pretty cool and exclusive to the Super Nintendo.
I also have plenty of exclusive levels.
Yeah, I don't have a mechanical bird level, but I do have a sweet giant robot level. Plus, I have levels where the screen scrolls and you gotta keep up for a little variety. I also have a level where you don't just go right, but you need to map your way through this maze-like airship.
Well, the Super Nintendo game actually has a few more features.
First off, like you said before, the normal attack on Super Nintendo has you shoot a laser sword. A laser sword! It's like Zelda, but better, since you don't need full life to use it. It's just laser sword time all the time. You can also hit either shoulder button for an exclusive roll attack. It's pretty straightforward as L makes you go left and R to the right. The Super Nintendo game also gives you more health than the Sega game. 7 hearts instead of 5. And my gems serve a different purpose. Every time you collect 100 gems, you get a 1-up. On Sega, it's used for a lame slot machine. I hate lame slot machines.
Hey, it's not lame.
Yes, the gems in Sega are for random slot machines. Slot machine gets activated after collecting 10 blue gems or 1 red gem. The slot machine can drop food, power-ups, or even 1-ups. But it can also drop bombs on you, so you need to be careful. But it can drop lots of 1-ups this way.
Whoa, not always.
If the difficulty is hard, the slot machine doesn't give you 1-ups. Talk about cheap. And if you play on very hard, all you get is bombs. Give me a break.
The slot machine is awful.
Okay, even if you don't like that, my game still does plenty yours doesn't. Let's talk power-ups.
The Genesis game has 2 power-ups, one for immediate corkscrew attacks, and a flame emblem for a more powerful sword attack. It lasts as long as you don't get hit.
Now let's talk about the rocket.
First off, on Super Nintendo, to use the rocket, you need to hold down a button to charge it. On Sega, it charges automatically, so you just need to tap the rocket button. No holding necessary. And my rocket has 2 levels. Level 1 lets you do a blast attack. If you wait a little longer, the rocket charges to level 2 for a more powerful corkscrew attack. Don't have that on Super Nintendo. Plus, on Super Nintendo, once you use the rocket, you just fall straight down.
It's not true. You can move in freefall when you hit the shoulder button for a roll attack.
It's a little annoying that you can't use the D-pad in freefall like you can in the Sega game. Also on the Sega game, not only can you move in the air once you use a rocket, you can use the rocket multiple times. This opens possibilities of continuous flight in this game. It makes for interesting platforming and boss battles. On Super Nintendo, you can only use the rocket once, and you have to hit the ground in order to use it again.
Also not true. I can do a couple of roll attacks and then use the rocket again.
But if you do it too many times in a row, you spaz out and fall.
I still think my rocket is as good as yours.
Really? It's got some issues.
Granted, the roll attack is cool, but if you do it too many times in a row, you get dizzy and are open to attacks. Also, if you hold the charge too long, you can have a mini explosion. While it doesn't hurt you, once again, you're open to attacks and it's just annoying.
Now let's talk about the passwords.
Both games have a password system. On Sega, it's 8 items, and on Super Nintendo, it's 12. That's nice, but it's not the point. The Sega password is like any normal password. You have to select the correct card and color. Not too difficult. On Super Nintendo, you have to enter the password as Sparkster. You're actually playing as Sparkster. This might seem charming at first, but it's just annoying. It takes up a lot more time. Passwords should just look more like this. Also, you can accidentally hit the wrong box and have to cycle through the symbols all over again. It's a small annoyance, but it's annoying.
Annoying is seeing the password on Genesis.
On the Super Nintendo, when you use all your lives, you see the password on the continue screen. On Genesis, you don't see the password on the continue screen. You only see the password if you choose not to continue. Thanks for the extra steps, Sega.
So it's a minor inconvenience. It's still easier to put in passwords in my game. Now let's talk about that options menu.
On Sega, you can increase the number of lives and continues. This is very helpful when you have to play the game on the harder difficulties. You can't increase lives or continues on Super Nintendo.
Your game isn't so great. It's slower. Just check out the attack speeds.
On Super Nintendo, your attack is nice and fast. And look how slow it is on Sega. This slow speed will likely make you use the rocket more and lead to undesired bouncing. That's the worst kind of bouncing.
And here's another area where your game is slower.
In both games you can duck to see the area below you, but on Sega, it takes forever. It can be pretty annoying.
And finally, let's talk about that slowdown.
The Sega game has its fair share of slowdown. You see this when there's too much on the screen. Look how much it slows down when you beat a boss.
Who cares about slowdown after a boss battle? And do you really want to talk about slowdown? Because your game is plagued with it.
Yeah, the Sega game has some slowdown, but it's nothing compared to the Super Nintendo game. This game has so many moments of slowdown, and these aren't short either. They last long and happen pretty often. Boss fights, regular fights, and the flight level is plagued with it. So slow. The Sega slowdown by comparison is minimal.
My game's still better. It's longer. It's 9 levels instead of just 6.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yes, the Super Nintendo game does have more levels, but the Sega game is still pretty long. Just compare the first levels. On Super Nintendo, it's made up of 2 sections, 1 mini-boss, and 1 main boss. On Sega, the first level is made up of 3 different sections, 2 mini-bosses, and a final boss. So the Sega game has plenty going on.
Plus, you don't always see all 9 Super Nintendo levels.
Remember how I said you need to play the game on hard to see the complete endings? On Super Nintendo, not only do you need to play hard to see the ending, you need to play hard to see all 9 levels. If you play on normal, the Super Nintendo game ends short. You just play 8 levels, not 9. So not only are you denied the ending, but you're also denied a level if you play on normal. On Sega Genesis, you see all the levels on normal. A level isn't denied just because you play on normal. Also, even if you beat the Super Nintendo game on hard, you get a typo. Congratulations? Seriously? Come on, Nintendo.
Okay, let's get into this. You don't always see the true ending on Genesis if you just play hard.
Okay, you beat the Genesis game on hard, but you don't get to see the true ending unless you were collecting the 7 swords throughout the game. What's that? Didn't know you needed to collect the 7 swords? You skipped the demo and didn't realize there was a sword there? Well, tough, because that's the only way to see the true ending.
Okay, you need to collect swords in my game, but it's kinda cool.
True, you need to collect 7 swords throughout the game to get the true ending. Think of it like Sonic, how if you beat Sonic without getting all the Chaos Emeralds, you see Robotnik taunting you. But in this game, you gotta get swords. And like Sonic, if you get all the swords, not only do you get the true ending, but you go Super Sonic, or in this case, Golden Sparkster. Your rocket charges faster, you always have a flame sword, and you're golden. This makes the boss of the game a joke and is totally worth the effort getting all those swords. And Golden Sparkster is completely exclusive to the Sega Genesis.
My game is better balanced.
This applies to the boss battles. On Super Nintendo, they range from ridiculously easy to incredibly cheap. Some bosses need no effort, while others have you rage quit. Particularly this robo battle against your rival, Axel. He can either not do much, or completely destroy you. Strategy doesn't come into play a lot. Most boss fights you mash attack, and hope the other guy dies first. On Sega, it's more balanced. The bosses all require strategy, not just button mashing.
It's close, but the Genesis gameplay, better.
With an improved rocket, better password system and more lives and continues, a lot less slowdown, more balance, access to all the levels on normal, and unlockable Golden Knight. Best gameplay goes to Sega Genesis.
Both games are good, but one is better, and that game is Sparkster for Sega Genesis.
It may not have the cool effects or 3D of the Super Nintendo game, but it's still pretty to look at. It has better presentation with added title cards. It has better sound with higher quality music tracks, and it has better gameplay with improved rocket, better password and options menu, a lot less slowdown, the ability to play the whole game on normal, more balance, and unlockable Golden Knight. The Super Nintendo version is definitely a good game though. It isn't as fine-tuned as the Sega game with its music, its slowdown, and unbalanced difficulty, but if you can get past its faults, definitely give it a try. Best game goes to Sparkster Rocket Knight Adventures 2 on Sega Genesis.
Well, that was fun. Hello? What? Another robbery's been committed. Don't worry, we have a plan.
So, we just walk the streets for hours?
We're not walking, dude. We're patrolling.
So we just patrol the streets for hours?
Yeah.
Hey, at least these rockets are light.
Oh yeah. And I like how they look like ordinary book bags.
Yeah, ordinary book bag, but definitely rockets.
Oh, most definitely rockets.
Hey look, there's a criminal trying to break into a car over there.
Huh? Time to shine. Hey criminal! Stop doing crime. Are you talking to me? It's time to show him everything that I've learned. Rocket Sega! What's happening?
Oh my god, that looked like it really hurt. My turn. Rocket Nintendo.
Huh. That reminds me of The Rocketeer. I think instead of breaking into cars, I'll go watch that today. We did it! Yay!
Thanks for checking out our latest video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to Xavier TheLycan for his donation of both Sparkster games. And thanks to everyone who suggested Sparkster. And keep those other suggestions coming. We will get to them. Also, check us out on Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Console Wars goodness. Later.
They forgot me, didn't they?